Every episode of Wham Baam Dashcam is packed with videos you won't find anywhere else, and this week is no exception. Watch to the end to find out how you can win your very own Wham Bam hoodie. Jan was out getting lunch for herself and her husband before he went to work. When the light turned green, she started across the intersection, but she never made it to the other side. Jan told us an 81-year-old man ran his red light, T-boning her Chrysler minivan at 60 miles per hour and sending it 500 feet down the road. First responders arrived quickly, and the driver of the... Wait, what is that? Wow, this has got to be the Honda bump to end all Honda bumps. Anyway, the Honda driver told the police that his light had been green, but they pointed out to him that he'd actually had a green right turn arrow. Jan was taken to the hospital where she received treatment for a head injury. The 81-year-old walked away unharmed. Sadly, Jan's van was totaled. The other driver's insurance provider paid Jan and her husband $12,000 US, and after medical bills and legal fees, they ended up with $5,200, not enough to pay the $6,200 they still owed on the van. This submitter's father-in-law was driving his Toyota Corolla. Suddenly, the driver of a Ford SUV pulled out in front of him while checking for traffic from the right, but not from the left. Even though he swerved and braked, he wasn't able to avoid a collision. Our submitter's Corolla was totaled, but thankfully there were no injuries and the insurance settlement paid for a replacement vehicle. Chris was driving in heavy traffic when an SUV driver grew impatient and decided to use the shoulder to get around everyone else. Unfortunately for them, one of the other drivers in line was a police officer who didn't appreciate their illegal use of the shoulder. A few minutes later, Chris passed them. At least they didn't have to pull over very far.
Thank you.
Fisher was on his way to Costco to get a new tire when he heard a strange sound behind him. He didn't see anything out of the ordinary at the time, but check out what he found when he reviewed his dashcam footage. A driver ahead of him slowed down before merging onto the highway, forcing everyone behind him to slow down. The driver of a blue Mazda slid off the road to avoid rear-ending a silver Mazda before slamming into the guardrail. Fisher told us our channel made him interested in owning a dashcam, but he only recently bought one after being rear-ended. He thinks everyone should have a dashcam and everyone should pay attention while driving. Reed had just left for work when he noticed a Ford F-250 broken down on the other side of the road, but this didn't seem unusual, so he just kept going. Before he was able to react, Reed suddenly ran over a drive shaft that the Ford had dropped in the road. Reed immediately pulled over to check his Volvo, but thankfully, the Ford's drive shaft hadn't caused any severe damage. He then went back and tossed the drive shaft in the ditch. Chris was driving along when the driver of a Nissan Murano got impatient with the traffic ahead of them and decided they'd rather be in Chris's lane. They then merged right without checking to see if the lane was clear. Chris swerved away and hit the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. The driver then continued to weave through traffic as Chris contacted the authorities to report their dangerous driving. Sadly, he had to head home before he got to see if anything else happened. Chris is actually one of our Platinum Patreon supporters. Come join our patron-only Discord server and say hi! Luke was driving home from work when he noticed another driver on her phone as she drove past him in the other lane. A little further down the road, a truck was broken down, partially blocking the lane. Somehow, the other driver failed to notice the truck's flashing lights until it was too late to avoid a collision. Even though she hit the brakes, the SUV slid into the back of the pickup. Luke stopped and called 911. Amazingly, even though the SUV driver admitted to being on her phone, the police gave the pickup driver a ticket for impeding traffic. Luke gave him a copy of his dashcam video so he could fight it in court. Thankfully, the pickup only sustained minor damage, but the SUV was totaled by the impact. Tyler was on his way home from work when he noticed smoke coming from a pickup truck. He moved to the right side of the road to avoid losing all visibility in the smoke. It turned out the smoke was coming from a fire that had somehow started in the bed of the pickup truck. Since Tyler didn't have a fire extinguisher, he kept heading home, but he hopes the other driver is okay. Harrison watched the driver of an RV make a U-turn across traffic moving at highway speeds. He had to slow down from 65 to only 15 miles per hour in a matter of seconds to avoid a collision. Thankfully, Harrison and his Lexus IS 300 both survived the rapid deceleration, but I'm not sure if the same can be said for his pants. Josh was headed to pick up his kids from school when he was struck by another driver who failed to yield at a stop sign. Josh pulled over and the police were contacted. The other driver's insurance providers started to give Josh some trouble, but they accepted fault after seeing Josh's dashcam footage. Josh's wife had to leave work early to get their kids, but thankfully, Josh's Mazda 6 was still drivable. It has since been repaired with a new door. This submitter was taking his son to school when he encountered this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver used a left turn lane to cut around everyone else before speeding off. Ironically, our submitter was able to catch up with him not long after without even breaking the speed limit. Hey, maybe we should cut him some slack. He's obviously just trying to get there, wherever there is. Abdul was driving down a highway when he became blocked by a large truck slowly passing another one. While he was waiting patiently, the driver of a Honda Accord went flying past all of them on the shoulder. The Accord just kept right on going as if this was perfectly acceptable driving. Abdul contacted the highway patrol and sent them this video, but he doesn't know if they'll do anything about it. Antonio had just dropped off his brother at his girlfriend's house. 5 minutes later, a black pickup truck sideswiped his Jeep Wrangler. Antonio quickly got control of his Jeep and avoided hitting anyone else. Both drivers pulled over, and when Antonio told the other driver he was calling the police, he fled the scene, making this a hit and run. Antonio considered chasing him, but he thought better of it and called the police instead. By reviewing his dashcam footage, he was able to provide them with the offender's license plate number. Sadly, it's been a few months now with no update from the police. Thankfully, the damage to Antonio's Jeep is fairly minor and he wasn't injured. Shout out to his brothers Hector and Fernando. This submitter was driving his Mustang GT when he passed a Tesla Model S. Evidently, the Tesla driver didn't appreciate that, so he accelerated and chased our submitter for a while before blowing past him on the shoulder.
Oh, okay.
Our submitter pointed out that the Tesla passed him at over 120 miles per hour. He didn't mention how fast he was going, but you can see it for yourself down below. Our submitter thinks the Tesla driver was being reckless. What do you think? Let us and our submitter know your thoughts in the comments below. This submitter was on his way home. While driving down a highway, another driver suddenly dove into his lane, and he told us he stopped breathing when this happened. Our submitter pointed out that the other vehicle only had a temporary license plate, and he also said, "Thank God nothing happened." Tim had left his Jeep Grand Cherokee parked when his rear-facing dashcam captured a major accident in an intersection. It seems that an SUV driver turned across traffic and the driver of an oncoming car wasn't able to avoid hitting it. The impact sent the SUV through a street sign and a crosswalk signal before it crossed a grass median. Ironically, the SUV ended up on the same road it had been turning from. When Tim realized he'd captured the collision on his dashcam, he gave a copy of the footage to the investigating officer. Aziz was driving late at night when he was shocked to encounter a driver coming toward him on a one-way road. Aziz slowed down and got ready to dodge the wrong-way driver. Thankfully, there was no collision, but he can't think of any good reason why someone would purposely do this. Sean's stepdad was test driving Sean's mom's Jeep Cherokee while trying to diagnose a transmission problem. Without warning, an oncoming driver crossed double yellow lines and veered into his lane. Thankfully, he was able to swerve to the shoulder and avoid a head-on collision. Sean asked us to shout out his stepdad Mike as well as his mother Bobby. They watch all of the Wham Bam channels together as a family. This submitter was driving to work when the driver of a van failed to yield and pulled out in front of him. Our submitter hit the brakes, but the slick road surface made it impossible to avoid a collision. The van driver told our submitter that he hadn't seen him and refused to sign the collision report. He changed his mind and admitted fault after our submitter showed him this dashcam footage. Fixing his Peugeot 208 cost about $4,000 US. Jeffrey sent us a video of some real monkey business. While he was going through a drive-through safari park, a monkey hopped up on his hood, ripped out the washer fluid line, and began drinking his washer fluid. Thankfully, there wasn't much in the reservoir. Not long after, a staff member chased the monkey off. He explained that the monkeys have figured out that some washer fluid contains alcohol and have become addicted. Jeffrey was able to fix the damage himself after buying an 8-pound hose online. I don't know about you, but 8 pounds sounds pretty heavy for a little hose.
Wham Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.
Want to win a Wham Bam hoodie? We're giving one away every week for 10 weeks. To enter, send a video in to our newest channel, Wham Bam Security Cam. If your video is used in an episode, you'll be entered in the giveaway. Then, make sure you're subscribed to Wham Bam Security Cam so you'll know if you win. Good luck!